Over 600 million has been invested in solar farms, inverters, factories, solar panels, labor, etc. in Sarnia-Lambton and Essex. There's another 600 million in fit and resort project in the list, awaiting approvals. How will your party encourage these investments to continue?
We will maintain and preserve all those contracts that are valid and have been signed as far as the microfit. And the fit contracts, we won't be doing away with the Green Energy Act, but we will be making modifications to it to make it more fair and equitable.
The Libertarian Party would not encourage any more fit or resop projects. We have a huge deficit, $10 billion and growing. We have a debt of $300 billion and growing. We just have no more money to spend. On a personal note, I want to say that I view the Green movement as somewhat of a secular religion, akin to Marxism. And both seem to have the same path, that they want to do away with individual rights, free choice, private property rights, and have a more of a centralized planned economy. I think that's inherently dangerous and inherently wrong.
I definitely would not scrap anything, and any scrapping would come at a cost. For the future, I believe we should move with the technology. The efficiencies of some of those solar panels and so on is still evolving, still getting better, but throwing massive amount of money at it, and especially that this cost will have to be paid by the consumer, and the consumer is stretched out to the limit. We cannot increase this electricity price anymore. I've seen with my own eyes when I volunteer at the homeless shelter, victims of those huge prices of electricity, people who became homeless, 70-year-old plus people that I've seen there. It was a shameful, but that's what happened, and we cannot afford.
The reality of the current investment of our wind and solar is about 3% of our energy mix. So that's about $3 to $4 on your energy bill. So the investments that we're making as ratepayers are looking at transmission and infrastructure. So in order to continue the FIT program, you can't just say that we're going to honor those commitments. You have to also talk about the investments that you will have to make to be able to continue the FIT program investments. And that comes from infrastructure.
Would you, as a candidate, support government support for energy conservation retrofitting for homes, businesses, and educational institutions?
Well, we know that the best conservation is energy that we do not use. And I think that as we go forward, is the sort of the concept that we need to foster within energy use and energy planning. It is the cornerstone of the Green Energy Act. And we've already seen a savings of 1,700 megawatts, which is like taking 500,000 homes off the grid entirely. So we know that we need to foster programs and planning that see no energy being used as the best form of conservation.
And families and small businesses kept saying to us that before they can worry about renovating their homes or their businesses, they need to ensure they can balance their budget and meet their basic needs. The PC party has listened and responded to people like that by immediately moving, if we're government, to remove the HST off electricity and gas, that retirement charge, and also the smart meters will be optional.
Greenpeace has endorsed our focus on conservation first. Before we know our true energy needs, we believe we need to tackle all measures to promote conservation. We will offer homeowners and businesses opportunities to invest in conservation measures, whether it's energy efficient appliances or specific retrofitting measures to their homes or buildings. Up to $5,000 will be available in loans to Ontarians, not giveaways, but loans.
The use of surplus energy generated by renewable generation. As you know, some nights and weekends the province actually has more electricity generation available than is being consumed. And that is caused by the fact that the nuclear power is running, nuclear generation and renewable generation is running. So that results in the sale of power at negative prices to the US. In other words, we pay them to take it. And a proposal by the Independent Electricity System Operator, the IESO, to turn off wind generation during these periods while leaving nuclear stations online. A recent report by the IESO forecast that this situation could occur in up to 50% of the time by 2015. What will your party do to ensure that renewable energy sources of generation are used in priority over other sources?
And the last part of the question is precisely what we're doing. We're working to bring 10,000 new megawatts of clean energy online so that we can reduce our reliance on nuclear and coal and increase our reliance on renewable and alternative energies so that we can, reverse the trend that we're seeing.
We're not a fan of nuclear energy. In fact, we'll end subsidies to the nuclear refurbs and development for now, and we will put that money back into retrofitting homes and making sure that we can reduce the need for energy. And we'll continue to fund green energy projects.
That's what's wrong with the Green Energy Act. It mandates that those green energy producers will be producing, they'll wind down places like Lambton Generating Station, that are already paid for producing electricity for a nickel, 7 cents, 6 cents a kilowatt hour, and they'll let these other stations run, these wind turbines and solar plants, to the detriment of these other ones. They run when our other plants are told to shut down, and then when there's a surplus of power, they've had to ship this power to Quebec and New York and other states at a grossly lower rate, because they won't pay the rate that what we're paying for. So we could be paying as much as 40 cents a kilowatt hour for power and then giving it away to New York State for a nickel. That's wrong, and we need to change that. We need to have a real focused look on this, so make energy an industrial policy and not a social policy.
Electrical transportation seems to be on the horizon. People are talking about plug-in hybrids, electrical vehicles, and so on. Quite a bit south of the border, actually. Would you encourage electrification of public and private transportation? If so, how? And how would you ensure our electrical power infrastructure supports this?
We would reinvest in the Transit City Light Rail program in Toronto, for example. That's been cut. And in the interim, we would encourage municipalities by covering half the cost of their transit system and freezing fares, which we would hope would allow them to build their ridership and move towards hybrid public transit as well. As far as plugging in and driving electric cars, I know that's down the road for us. We certainly do support any move towards that, and ensuring that that's part of our energy mix in the future, and that's part of the demand that we would address as we continue to fund biofuels and other sources of energy.
Yes, well, thank you. Well, effective, safe, and efficient transportation is certainly important to Ontario, and that will be a major part of our platform. We have committed in our changebook.ca to invest over $35 billion in new infrastructure over the first 3 years in office. We're given the opportunity and privilege of forming government, and that will be used to invest in innovative technology to reduce traffic congestion. And then we'll also give all Ontario municipalities that don't have a municipal transit system, such as Sarnia, will give Petrolia, for example, their share of the gas tax, so they can take those kind of transportation projects and make the most sense for them. And we also want to increase dedicated revenue to municipalities from the provincial gas tax and let them invest in the kind of investments in their municipalities that make the most sense. If that's smart cars and electric cars in Toronto, so be it. And manage traffic flow better in Sarnia-Lambton, works in Sarnia-Lambton.
I support electric transportation systems. I've seen them work in some jurisdictions. The challenge is to make it attractive to consumer on a cost basis. And if we do follow what the BBW are doing with the energy sector, escalating these prices, they've done it and they keep on continuing doing it, I'm worried that that will be doomed to failure. We do have to do it at a reasonable cost.
The Ontario Liberal Party, and myself included, do support the electrification of transportation. We have been a supporter of this movement, and we will continue to do so. Our platform sees us making an $80 million commitment specifically to electric vehicle infrastructure. So that includes charging stations, parking lots, the industry startup fees that are needed for these types of initiatives. And I think that this is a question that speaks to, again, the future that we're moving to in alternative fuels, and speaks to new industries that we're building across the province and here in this community that allows us to move forward with new initiatives, new industry, and quite frankly, a sustainable future.
What is your position on the future of Ontario's Green Energy Act? What's your viewpoint on this economic strategy, and what would you do differently?
As we come out of the recession, we are seeing a need for a vision that allows us plan for the future. And the Green Energy Act provides an environment to do that. You know, throughout the summer, canvassing and meeting with different stakeholders, there are imperfections with the program. There are people who agree with the concept but want to see it better. So that is really where our focus should be. Not to talk about how we would destroy something that has created jobs, because I can't understand, you know, the rationale behind saying, well, it's only going to be 50,000 jobs. Well, that's 50,000 jobs, and that's a secure future for people who are now, right here at this college, studying to become leaders in this industry. It's not just green and solar. This is bio-based industries, this is alternative fuels, the electrification of transport. This is a big picture. And if we're consistently talking about destroying it, then we're not moving forward, we're moving backwards.
Thank you.
We stand in firm support of the Green Energy Act, as we always have. But as a public utility delivering power at cost to consumers, we would engage in a more transparent request for proposal process, as well as adhering to our plans to engage in a Buy Ontario policy, meaning that when proposals come from Ontario companies that come within 10% of a competing offer, we will reward the contract to the Ontario company. I also believe personally that it is narrow-minded to bank our entire economic future on green energy. There needs to be a more balanced approach to investing in the future, which is why an NDP government would target small businesses that create jobs with tax incentives. And that can apply to a number of jobs within the sector as well. But we have to be a little bit more open-minded about it. Thanks.
There was green energy in Sarnia-Lambton, Ontario, long before the Green Energy Act. The two cogeneration units that were built in Chemical Valley, Transalta, the one in Imperial Oil, the two gas plants down in St. Clair Township.
Ontario farmers generate $170 million annually in farm gate sales alone. There's no doubt that farming and food production and processing needs to be viewed as the profitable and viable business that it is. If you're elected, will you fight for provincial and federal investment in the economic potential of local food and farming?
Agriculture is vital for our future. So much so that we would engage in a rural sustainability strategy that would focus on ensuring rural areas have high-speed internet so farmers can engage in business activity more easily. We would direct money to upgrading roads and bridges, offering incentives for doctors to relocate to rural settings, keep schools open, and encourage small business growth. We will offer apprenticeship programs to encourage young people to seek farming as a career. All of this leads to a strong backbone for our Buy Ontario policy, which does affect the agricultural sector. All public services, including jails, schools, hospitals, etc., will be mandated to buy local food when available. We will also fight to break down regulations so our farmers can compete with foreign products currently being dumped into our markets at unfair prices. And we will encourage local wines to be sold at local farm markets, which we believe opens the doors to a new market and brings new people to local farm markets.
I think we've all agreed up here that absolutely we would support more programs to encourage local food in our markets. You know, we have to look at, again, the records and what we've done and what we plan to do in this sector. We've invested $80 million into a foodland strategy. I think 96% of Ontarians recognize that Foodland Ontario is symbol. That's a huge success for this sector. You know, we have an accountability act that sees local food in our cafeterias, in our hospitals, in our public institutions. And we want to look at ramping up that local food act to make sure that it's in all cafeterias, in all public institutions, to build on where the gaps are. You know, we're proud to say that we've invested in broadband connection because we are connecting farmers, and here in this community we've benefited greatly from that. And we stood shoulder to shoulder with farmers to deliver the risk management program. You know, this was in consultation with farmers to give them what they need for the predictability, bankability, and stability to do the job that they do best, and to bring in young farmers to continue that industry.